Today we have Adam Barker on the show. So how's it going, Adam?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks for having me today. Um, I'm excited to be on the show with my sweet Starship Commander headphones today. We were
You look
joking
awesome,
about
man.
that
You look
before.
awesome.
It's all for the good of the audio right now. So
Well,
I
I'm
hope,
not even sure how I feel about this thing. It's like this
yeah, I mean,
massive microphone. I kind of just got it, so we'll see how it works out. But
I think it goes really well with your goatee.
oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yes, yes.
Well, Adam and I we got to know each other actually recently. We met on a commercial shoot for Manfrotto, and I'll let Adam kind of explain it. Do you want to explain
Yeah,
it?
yeah. I'll go ahead here. So basically, I was approached as Aaron was. I was approached by Manfrotto a couple months ago to do the shoot for their new Be Free tripod. It's kind of their new compact, lightweight travel tripod. It's just an awesome, awesome piece of equipment. And kind of what we did was just go through California for, we had like a 7-day road trip through California, rented an RV, got to know each other very well in a 7-day period of time, and just visited some of the most iconic landscape locations you could imagine in California. And it really was just a dream shoot for me. I think both Aaron and I can attest to the fact that it was a dream crew.
It
Had
was
such a
awesome.
great dynamic amongst everyone there. And, the locations were rad, the product was sweet. The conditions, I have to say, the conditions for landscape photography were kind of challenging because we had really clear skies most of the time. But, as we'll probably talk about, that's one of the things I feel like, in the realm of professional photography or making your living as a photographer, it's all about adapting and overcoming obstacles on an hourly basis, I guess. So awesome shoot, good times.
Yeah, I mean, hey,
Yeah.
in spite of the challenging conditions that we had, your imagery was killer.
Well, thank
I
you.
don't know if I
Thank you,
told you
Aaron.
that yet, so
Oh, I
it
appreciate
it
it.
was awesome.
And
And
this guy here shot amazing behind the scenes photos. And yeah, I think
yeah,
they,
I shot. So I was contracted to do the behind the scenes, which was that's just fun. I mean, that's just a lot of fun.
yeah.
It's hard to call that work. But then also the product photography and really just shooting the talent, Adam, kind of doing his thing. So, and I have to say, watching Adam work is it's pretty fascinating experience. I mean, I'm not a landscape photographer. I have no experience with that whatsoever, but I do have an appreciation for it. So,
Thank you.
uh,
Thanks, buddy.
yeah, I have to say, watching it was pretty cool, man.
I appreciate
But
it.
let's get into it. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff I want to cover today. I might not be able to get to it all, but either way, we'll see what we can do. So
Sure.
let's talk about your background. What did you do before you got into photography?
Okay, so we'll start from the very beginning. My only formal training in photography was black and white slide film photo class in high school. That was kind of my introduction to photography. I picked up, my dad gave me my first digital, well, not digital, my first SLR. It was a Canon FTB, so just a tank with a neck strap on it. But it was a great camera, everything manual. Really kind of gave me a good foundation for learning the fundamentals of photography. And and then, it's not like I picked it up and I was like, this is my destiny, or as George McFly would say, this is my density. Um, but it really, I enjoyed it, but I wasn't like, oh, I'm definitely going to be doing this for my career. Um, but then I got into college. I went to college at the University of Utah. I majored in communications with an emphasis on public relations. And while I was there, I kind of started shooting more and more. I graduated college and worked in the public relations industry, in the ski industry for a lot of years. Skiing, growing up in Salt Lake City, we've got such an amazing product for skiing here. It's always been a huge part of my life. And so I worked in the PR slash marketing slash media relations industry for about 5 years or so, and as we will probably touch on it, it was very helpful in now having established myself as a photographer. So, that's really kind of it. As I was working in PR, I started a business on the side, as many of us do or have done,
Mhm.
and I had a photography business on the side for about 2 years before I jumped off to do it full time.
Yeah, okay, that's a perfect segue. So let me ask you this: when you say you were doing photography for 2 years part time before you jumped in full
Hmm.
time.
Yep.
Like, how did you know it was the right time to jump in full time?
Man, I think I knew because I was at the point where, and I had a really great job. Like I got paid to ski and schmooze media, and I mean, it really was a dream job. There were earnings, there were limitations to what I could earn, and
Mm,
ceilings to where I could progress. But for all intents and purposes, it was a great job. So it wasn't like I was in the doldrums of some terrible, like stale air cubicle job.
you had a good
But
job.
yeah, I had a good job, but I think I knew when I just couldn't stop thinking about anything else.
Okay.
I really was thinking about photography night and day. I was spending a lot of time reading blogs, forums, kind of that usual first step where you're just, you're like a kid in a candy store and you just can't get enough. And
Right.
and then it basically got to the point where I was so invested, time wise and equipment wise, um, that I just knew I either had to kind of pull back and it had to be more of a hobby for
Hmm.
me and just kind of a fun hobby, or I had to kind of just give her and see if I could make it go at it full time. And I always knew, I just knew in my heart, just the way that I am, I knew that I could do it. I knew, I didn't know for sure that I was good enough. Like I think everybody, I don't think there's anybody that will tell you I knew that I was a
Right.
good enough photographer to be uber successful. I think a lot of people believe or feel that they have a skill or a talent,
Right.
and that they have the passion and the drive to go with it. And that's kind of where, I was just given a keynote address here locally at Pictureline, which is the local camera store, and
Yeah, I saw that.
and I have kind of my formula for business success in terms of photography is, it's drive, passion, and skill.
Okay.
And I was very driven at that point, and I was very passionate, and this skill set was kind of TBD, to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
decided, but I felt like it was halfway there, and the only way to better that skill set was really to dive right in.
Right. It's almost like fake it till you make it, or
Exactly.
okay.
No, no, but really it is.
Yeah.
It really is kind of, I mean, I think every commercial job that I do, even still, because I'm still making my way through the ranks, I'm very happy with where I am and what I've accomplished in the almost 5 years that I've been doing this full time. But of course, I mean, it's the more I learn, the less I know, sort of thing. And,
You're right.
and I think every job that I take on makes me just a little bit uncomfortable. And that's really good, because it puts pressure on me to
Yeah.
perform and to better myself. And I mean, the most recent job I just did was for a German music label called Deutsche Grammophon. They represent,
That's
yeah,
cool.
crazy name.
Yeah.
They represent some of the most big time classical music artists around the world. And so
Wow.
it's kind of a roundabout story, but I ended up doing a shoot for Bryn Tervel, who is this Welsh opera singer. For those classical music fans out there, you might be familiar with him. Big time dude. And he was recording an album here locally with the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. So, in a roundabout way, they were referred to me. And really, the focus of the shoot was environmental portraits for an album cover and then for a cover story for, I think it's Sunday Telegraph 7 magazine in the UK, which is part of their Daily Telegraph newspaper there. So it was kind of a big deal, a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
For me, I don't really shoot celebrities very often, unless you consider you on the Manfrotto shoot when I had my lens pointed at you there one or two times, and it was mostly you pointing at me, and we all know I'm not a celebrity.
It
So
was more like you're the
um,
celebrity. Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I was definitely pretty intimidated by the shoot, but it all went
Okay.
off really well. They came to me for my background in, that scenic landscape arena as well as my active lifestyle arena, and they kind of looked at my portfolio and thought, okay, this guy's got a great knowledge of the local area. We want a Western feel to this album cover, and I guess to bring it back full circle, the point is that, yeah, I mean, I've never done a shoot like that before, but it was very exciting, and there were definitely some challenges, and in the end, though, I feel like we came out with a great product. So the whole fake it till you make it thing, it's nothing really to be ashamed of. I mean,
Right.
that's part of your brand, is you want people to believe that you can get it done for them, and if you believe in yourself and if you have that background and that skill set, then you really can. I guess the danger of that is maybe getting in a little bit past your head, and maybe that's you got to know that too. Maybe when you're not capable of accomplishing it, but I would
Right.
bet 95% of the time you can do it.
Thanks for like honestly, thanks for admitting that you were intimidated at that
Yeah.
last shoot. I think a lot of photographers they feel a need to kind of puff themselves up and just have endless confidence. And confidence is important, I think. But I mean, being real about it and honest is really helpful for a lot of newer photographers because it's a real thing that really never goes away. At least that's what I've found. Just being intimidated sometimes before a big shoot, but like I think it's probably a good thing. I mean, it's like that's what motivates you to push your photography to a new level. Put yourself in uncomfortable positions, right?
Yeah, and I think it keeps you honest.
Yeah,
I think if you're not being pushed or stretched, if you're not a little bit intimidated or nervous about the shoot, I mean, being nervous is a good thing. Like
yeah.
you don't want to be too nervous,
No,
but being nervous means you care,
right.
and
Yeah,
that you've got a client that you want to impress and that you want to produce for.
exactly.
But it's all about how you handle that and how you portray that. You don't need to go to the client and be like, I am so freaking nervous for this
Yeah,
shoot.
exactly.
It's like I don't. I
Not a
just
good
don't know
thing.
if I'm gonna be able to get this done, and they've already signed on the line and they're paying you good money and
That's funny.
you've paid a lot of money in production fees and location fees and you've
Right.
set everything. That's not how you handle it. You handle it intrinsically, and from and on an external standpoint, you're just it's nothing but instilling confidence in the client, and so I think it's all about dealing with that, and a lot of it comes down to preparation too. It's like you will. I can't remember who told me this. It was somebody in military, but they said you will never, and I guess you could take it two ways, but really what they said is you never will really rise to the occasion. You will fall back to your level of training. And I know that kind of sounds a
Hmm.
little bit depressing maybe to some, but it actually is really true because when we get in situations where we might not be super comfortable, or maybe situations that we're unfamiliar with, we're instinctively gonna fall back to our level of training. And really what it comes down to is photography,
Yeah.
and and if whether you're shooting portraits or action sports or scenic landscape, whatever the situation is, in the end, you're turning dials on a black box and pushing a shutter button, and I know that's oversimplifying it, but that really is what it is, and
Yeah.
it's just overcoming small obstacles and dealing with things, and churning out, 5-star imagery regardless of what may or may not stand in your way.
Yeah. Well, gosh, there's so many. You touched on so many good things. Like I wanted to go off on like a tangent every 30 seconds. There's like so it's gonna be hard for
That's
me
what
to like.
happens to me.
What's
ADD.
that?
I think I've got that like ADD in a serious way. Tangents right and
Oh
left.
man, me too though. There's so many things that you said I just want to touch on. So let me see if I can remember them. Okay. So let's go back a little bit real quick. So when you were saying that when you first got started, because I still want to talk about that's a big deal to a lot of newer photographers. Like how do they get their foot in the door? How do they know when to take the plunge full time? So you said that it's when you couldn't stop thinking about it. All you could do was think about photography all the time, and it was hard for you too because it's not like you had some crummy job that it was like you wanted to quit anyways. You had a great job, so
Yeah,
taking the
yeah.
leap and a family too. Am I right about that?
Yeah, yeah, I've got three boys. My wife's laughing at me because she's looking at me with my headphones on, which is awesome. Um, I've got three boys. When I started, believe it or not, this is the crazy thing. When I decided to jump off to do it full time, I
Yeah.
had, um, excuse me, my oldest son, who was, I don't know, then he was just 2.5. We had a baby on the way, and
So
so
when you took the jump, you had a baby on the way.
yeah, and
Yeah.
the
See
economy
that's
really had
ballsy.
just
That's
yeah,
courageous
the
right there.
economy had really just tanked. I mean,
Yeah.
it was in October of '08, and there really logically there really could not have been a worse time. But it was almost like I was to the edge. It was either jump now
Mm-hmm.
or just stay. It's like somebody pushed me in the water and I got to start
You'll
swimming, or
figure
so
it
I'm going to
out.
stay on the dock, and so yeah, it was. I just kind of felt in my heart that without that it was time,
Right.
and so. I don't know. I guess
And so you used what you learned though in your with your background, right? I mean, because I was talking to you before the interview about this, but like so many photographers get like have a background in something completely unrelated to photography. I find it really interesting. Like, myself, I was a business finance major in
yeah,
college. It's like, how did I get into photography? Well, I did. And a lot of people are have similar interesting stories like that, rather than just going to specifically photography school. So your background, and I think that helps them in their careers. Sometimes it makes them a
sure.
little more well-rounded. So
Yeah, yeah,
and this show, I want to focus not so much on the technical aspect or the creative aspect of photography. I want it to be more focused on the business of
yeah,
photography, because I
yeah,
think a lot of photographers out there are really talented, but if they don't have that solid business foundation, they're going to fail, or they just won't
yeah.
be able to get off the ground. So how did your understanding of that world influence and help you succeed?
Well, yeah, I think that, I mean, as anyone in a freelance capacity in any sort of industry, whether it's photography or selling bows or chocolates, whatever, making dolls, I don't know. Doesn't really matter what it is you gotta understand, like, the business side of it, like you said. And I always say, as cliche as it is, that the hardest part of running a photography business is running a photography business. It is clicking the shutter is the easy part.
I agree.
Everything else occupies a great deal of time, and a lot of the other stuff is really what determines, your success as a business person and as a photographer. So with PR, with me, I guess what really helped me is, I mean, you really have to be a promoter in this business. You really have to understand the ins and outs of promoting your work and promoting your ability to get the job done, because it is about much more than just what you produce behind the camera. I mean, ultimately that's what people see.
Hmm.
But understanding the difference between, going out there and patting your ego and saying, hey, me, look at me, I'm amazing, and hey, I am the best photographer for this job. I may not be the most or the least expensive. I may not be the most expensive, but there is no better photographer suited for this job. Here is an example of the work I've done for clients similar to you in the past.
Hmm.
Here is an example of the work that I will be doing for you. Um, this is why, you can trust me with this job. It's not just about the images. So I guess that's part of it. The other part is from a sponsorship standpoint and from a marketing and branding standpoint, because I
Hmm.
think, having a brand is extremely important in this day and age, and having an identity, being able to separate yourself from, all of the other photographers out there is so supremely important. It's just understanding that in the world in which we live, companies and brands and individuals, they want to attach themselves to other companies and brands and individuals that are reputable and credible, but may not fall in line in the same industry that in which they exist. For example, let's talk about, like, I have a vehicle sponsor.
Hmm.
It's awesome. My vehicle sponsors Mark Miller Subaru and Subaru of America. Never in a million years did I dream that I'd have a vehicle sponsor.
Yeah,
But
that's
I did
awesome.
dream it up one morning and put together a proposal. That literally is how it happened. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning one morning, couldn't get this idea out of my head,
Yeah.
and really the basis for that whole proposal is and with any other sponsor is that, I have a good fan base and following of individuals out there
Hmm.
who also happen to be in the prime buying demographic for a Subaru. These are outdoorsy people that spend a lot of time in the outdoors, participating in active lifestyle sports, mountain biking, trail running, hiking, skiing, what have you. If you were to break down the ideal buyer for a Subaru, it would be a lot of these people.
Right.
Um, and, Mark Miller Subaru, if they can align themselves with a credible, reputable brand outside of the auto industry, then immediately they're going to reach individuals that follow me and believe, my voice and what I have to say, and they're going to have this cross promotional aspect to everything that we do and say, okay, well, Adam Barker Photography drives a Subaru. Well, does that mean everybody that sees my work is going to go buy a Subaru? No. But everybody that enjoys my work is going to take note that I drive a Subaru. And they may or may not have been thinking about buying a Subaru at one
Oh,
point. It's
true.
going to keep it front of mind, in front of mind. And so you just have opportunity to kind of, um, attach yourself to a brand that's reputable and credible outside of your immediate industry. So that may have been more
No, no,
specific than you wanted, but
no, that's perfect. Actually, it's a perfect segue because I actually really wanted to talk to you about sponsors, and because I know that you're sponsored by quite a few companies, and I wanted to talk about uh, all aspects of that. So
sure.
let's go back to Subaru. Okay, so
Yeah.
you woke up at 5:30 in the morning. Bing, light bulb goes off, and you're like,
Yeah.
I got this killer idea. I have to act on this right now. You wrote up a proposal. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the proposal.
So the proposal was legit. I mean, it was a good 2 to 3 pages, and it doesn't really matter how long it is.
Yeah.
Um, but
What were the points, the key points that you
the
pitched to
points,
Subaru?
the points really were illustrating. There was a couple ways that I was going to. Well, let's back up a little bit with
Okay.
sponsors. I think a lot of the time with sponsors, photographers and people in general are just thinking, this is what I need.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, the first thing I was like, okay, I could use a car.
Yeah.
That's great. I wanted a car so I could buy my wife a new car, and I didn't really want to. We had two vehicles that were getting older, and pretty soon we were going to have to replace both of them.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was kind of the initial thing, is that I had a need for a vehicle. That's where most people stop. It's like, okay, this is what I need, and they forget that a sponsorship is really a two-way street, and this is what I need, and this is what I can offer you. Because and you really have to remember that when you're approaching sponsors is why would they give you what you need if you don't have something that you could provide for them
Two-way
of
street.
equal or greater value in return,
Right.
and that really falls back on, okay, what is your brand,
Hmm.
um, what do you have to offer them, and really, what is your visibility, what's your credibility, where will you bring them return on the money or product that they're spending on you. So in any case, the yeah, I had the idea, got up, wrote the proposal, and there was a couple aspects. It was real time exposure in terms of driving the vehicle, so it's wrapped in my
Yeah.
photography. It's got the Subaru Mark Miller Subaru logos on it. So it's branded with my brand and with their brand. It's a very noticeable car. I've kind of had to change some of my driving tactics to
Mm.
make them a little more road.
That's
Um,
true, right? Because I
yeah,
mean, there's no hiding.
no, there's not. It's very not inconspicuous, which
I
it's,
saw a picture of it actually on
yeah.
Instagram recently.
So that was part of it, real time exposure. The other part would be, there's a social aspect to it. I have a good following on Facebook and Twitter,
Hmm.
and a decent following on Instagram, and so, consistently being able to put up posts and mention their brand and direct people their way, not in an intrusive manner, but in like a very friendly kind of partnership manner. The great thing about these social outlets is that people are getting these feeds, and they're going, you don't have to feel like you're intruding upon them, because if they don't want to see it, they don't have to.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm getting off a little bit there. So there was that. There was the real time. There was the social aspect to it. There was also the fact that when I publish, whether I'm writing articles, or whether I'm giving, or whether I'm publishing my imagery, a lot of the time I'm able to get ink for my sponsors. Outdoor Photographer, for example, is a national publication. It has a circulation of about 330,000 magazines of every issue that they put out. So that's a
Wow.
lot of people that
Oh
you're
yeah.
reaching. And there is ad value to even mentioning, to mentioning a product, or a brand, or a location. And so I guess this is another place where my PR and my advertising and marketing background comes into play, is that I understand kind of how that all works. I understand that having if I shoot an image for Alta Ski Area and I publish that image on the cover of Skiing Magazine, and saying Alta Ski Area on the front, they say Brant Moles at Alta Ski Area by Adam Barker. The value of having Alta Ski Area on the cover of that magazine, was $115,000. That was the ad value to Alta Ski Area.
Wow.
So having that leverage and being able to then go to them and say, okay, obviously, like I'm getting images published, but not only am I getting images published, I'm able to quantify what this means to you, you
Yeah.
know. So that type of thing is important, and so that was another aspect to the proposal with Mark Miller Subaru. And that really kind of that really was about it. They're a very progressive brand, so
Hmm.
their approach is like we would rather have a driving billboard attached to a local personality, and a local brand, than a stale billboard on the side of the freeway,
Hmm.
and it's just, people are different, brands are different in that regard, but they they were in line with kind of what I was thinking, and it worked
Yeah.
out. It's worked out really well.
So again, I have like 18 tangents in my head. I'm like, which one should I
Yeah.
go to right now? Uh, so, do you feel that after you landed your first sponsor, it got easier
Um, Definitely, it definitely, well,
or
I I
harder? Maybe is it
I think it's a little bit of both,
okay?
because as when I landed my first sponsor, digital photography was still, I won't say brand new. Got a telephone going off right there. I won't say brand new, but it was newer, which means there were less photographers out there trying to, put a dent in the industry and
Hmm.
make a name for themselves. So I guess the upside is the more people or products or brands, the more sponsors you have that get behind you and believe in you, obviously the more impressive and the more reputable you're going to appear to prospective sponsors moving forward. They say to
Hmm.
themselves, well, if so and so has been working with Adam for this many years and they're still with them, and well, then maybe we should give them a look.
Hmm.
I think the other side of that is you just get a lot more competition and it's a lot more diluted,
Okay.
and there are a lot more people that are going after the same things, and really are very reputable and credible as well. So it's kind of
Hmm.
a double-edged sword.
So how do you hang on to those sponsors then? You
You
have to just
produce,
constantly
you produce, man. You
produce,
hustle.
right?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
keep them happy. You keep your end of the bargain. You stay visible. You stay current.
Yeah.
You continue to give them return on their dollar. And I think that if you it's it's nowhere near as hard as it sounds, but it's not easy either. You
Hmm.
have to be consistently visible, both in a from a public standpoint, in promoting their product and their brand, and doing your part to be a representative and ambassador for them. But you also have to do a good job of being in touch with your liaison to the company, whether that's the marketing, director of marketing, whoever it is
Hmm.
that's holding down the fort, whoever it is that signed your contract. I mean, you need to make sure that they're aware of everything that's going on. I do simple things like, for example, my outerwear sponsor is Arc'teryx.
Hmm.
Makes the most bomber outerwear on the planet. Like I literally, it's like a dream sponsor for what I do with my ski shooting and a lot of my outdoor shooting. They're amazing. And I mean, I'll do simple things like when I get emails from people asking me what jacket they should buy, or they saw me wearing this jacket or that vest or
Yeah.
whatever in this video, and they ask me about it. I will just forward it on very simply to my team manager or the marketing director and say, hey, just want to let you know that it's working. It's working. I'm getting emails from people asking me about, like, people want to know that
See,
that's
that's
going on. So
important.
yeah, I mean,
Following up and
just
letting them know that it's
exactly,
effective.
because
Yeah.
there's just so many people that don't do that. There's
Yeah.
so many people that hold their hand out and then they get what they want and then they fail to produce. And it doesn't take much to keep those with the purse strings happy in a
So
lot of
just
cases.
so just maintaining that relationship, right? Or
Maintaining
those
that relationship,
relationships.
making sure they know, because you got to know that they're very busy as well, and so
Hmm.
they might not be aware of everything that you're doing. So that's your job to make them aware. For example, the Manfrotto gig that we did, we produced a ton of video, some great videos. The Bowie brothers put out some fantastic videos from
Yeah,
that
they
shoot.
did.
And it was very important to me that I was wearing, I mean, you saw it, I probably wore like 20 different jackets that
You
week,
did. That's
you know,
why we're
like
talking
20
about this
different
right now.
colors, you know? And it was very important to me because that's added value for Arc'teryx.
Yeah.
Is that, I'm putting their logo in front of how many thousands of people during in those videos the entire week, and so it's thinking about that stuff.
And then, so how are the politics with regard to sponsorships? Like, for example, like you said, the magazine, I think you said it was Outdoor Photography. If you mention another brand in an article that you're featured in, that's almost quantifiable exposure for that other brand, that other company that you're sponsored by. But are there politics involved with that? Like, does outdoor photography try to control what you say and
Yeah,
like,
there certainly are, and you got to be careful. I mean, you want to do it in an organic way, I guess. It's not like sell, sell, sell. It's more like this is just a part of me, and this is, um, like Stingray filters, for example. I use Stingray filters, best grad ND filters, best polarizers out there, and a lot of the time in a magazine like Outdoor Photographer, you're putting down specs for all your images. It's the equipment that you use, and so so that's a really easy way for me. Instead of saying, "Hey, you guys need to go out and buy Stingray filters right now. They're the best filters ever," but just simply attaching that. Okay, I shot this image with the Stingray three-stop reverse grad ND filter. I don't need to say anything at that point if it's an impressive image. If it's an awesome image,
yeah,
the instant thought process is,
I
wow,
need to get that.
I gotta have that.
Yeah,
Like if he can produce an image like that with that filter, then I can too, and I gotta have it.
yeah,
So it's about, and a lot of the time, entities like, for example, even with Manfrotto, they weren't super comfortable in a lot of the interviews with me sporting outerwear because they do have a line of outerwear as well, and that's just something that you gotta roll with.
it's part of the business, right?
Yeah,
Conflict of
yeah,
interest every now and then. You
yep,
just gotta roll with the punches.
exactly.
So let's talk about the benefits of having sponsors. I know there's lots, whether it's monetary and just go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah.
what are the benefits of
Well,
the
there's
sponsors?
a couple. I mean, obviously compensation.
Mm-hmm.
If you're working with sponsors that are paying you to represent their product, that's the best. When you're under contract and they're paying you, a monthly retainer, and there'll be stipulations to that contract. So that's number one. Number two is product, and I don't think that you can say one is necessarily greater than the other, although it's always nice to be getting money in your bank account. You got to think that a lot of the product is keeping money in your bank account.
Yeah,
It's not necessarily putting money in there, but I think between tripods, outerwear, apparel, filters, vehicles, there's very
bags.
little, yeah, backpacks, Click Elite backpacks. There's very little.
Those ones in the
That's
back
right.
there.
That's right.
Yeah,
Right
as I say.
there. Click Elite. They're great. Great people. Great
What's
backpacks.
the name of the company?
Click Elite.
Click on
CLIK Elite. They're pretty new. They're about 3 or 4 years old on the market,
it. Okay.
and I've had opportunity to wear a bunch of backpacks, and most importantly for me, like especially when I'm shooting like skiing, for example,
Yeah.
like it takes a lot to make a good backpack for skiing. That's also good for photography. So anyway, we're getting kind of, but go check them out. Click Elite.
So I got you there. So there's two aspects, right? There's the
Yeah,
product, so keeps money in your bank. You're getting to access to all these awesome products that you would use anyways, because otherwise you
exactly.
wouldn't be sponsored by them. So you get that benefit, which is huge and fun.
Yeah,
But then secondarily, you get the monetary benefit, and that's what I want to
yeah.
talk a little bit more about, without going into specifics, because I understand you can't. I want to know, like, give me like an example, like
It's
how
not.
much money can
Yeah,
can
it's not as
somebody?
much as you think. Let's
It's
put it
not
that way.
okay.
No, it's not as much as you think. And that's where like you need to talk about that, like it's significant, but it's not overwhelming. It's not a Rolex sponsorship like freaking Roger Federer has,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
it's not a Nike golf sponsorship like Tiger Woods. Not even remotely close. Obviously, these guys are superstars. And you're talking about companies that have big time budgets for those sorts of agreements. But that's where I want to talk about like the third component or benefit to sponsorship is that cross promotional
Yeah.
benefit where you are attached to that brand and they
Hmm.
are attached to you, and that's very important because all of a sudden, you just as a freelancer you want to be casting the widest net you possibly can at every second of your life. Is
Yeah.
you just never know who you might reach that might have an interest in what you do and what you can provide for them. And so having my brand and my name attached to these other brands is very important because it increases my visibility, increases my credibility, and it exposes me to an entirely new audience. One that never, you know, somebody, let's say, I mean, even outside of the photography industry, let's say Arc'teryx. Let's just talk about Arc'teryx again, for example. You got a lot of climbers and hikers and skiers, etc., that use their product, but I guarantee you, 90% of them have never heard of Adam Barker Photography. So all of a sudden, by having myself partnered with them, it's exposing me to them, and a lot of those people, some of them might work as creatives in an ad agency, some of them
Hmm.
might work as photo editors at a magazine. You just never know. So
Do you have any?
that's
Oh, sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
yeah, I was just saying that third aspect, that of being able to align your brand with another reputable brand, is very, very important, and the exposure that it can offer you.
This is kind of a tough question, but can you recount? Do you recall any specific experience you had where a relationship with one company turned into a random job that you booked that had nothing to do with that first company? Like just because you knew somebody.
Absolutely, I
Okay.
can give you actually a really good example. So, a couple of years ago, I was shooting saltwater fly fishing down in the Bahamas,
Okay.
which is every bit as fantastic as it sounds.
Yeah.
And a gentleman by the name of Oliver White, who owns Abaco Lodge and Bears Lodge down there, just amazing bone fishing lodges. He has an amazing story behind him, and part of his story is that he spent a number of years in New York working on Wall Street. In
Hmm.
any case, after doing some work for Oliver down there in the Bahamas, I randomly got contacted by a director of marketing for a company in New York. And They make a product called the Life Straw, which is a unique water filter that you can put right in a stream or a lake or anything and suck water right out of it, and it's filtered as it goes right through it. It's been used in third world countries for a long time, and they've just recently introduced it to the
I saw your
consumer
photo
market.
of that product. It's a pretty
Yeah,
cool photo.
yeah, pretty unique photo, like
Yeah.
a kind of half in, half out underwater shot.
Yeah.
And that was totally just word of mouth referral, from a buddy. And that's happened a number of
So
times.
that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of your business, then you would say, right?
Word of mouth is huge. I mean, there is no better referral that you can have than, from somebody who trusts you and has worked with you previously. And then the other side of that is they are referring you to somebody that trusts them as well. I mean, that's what we do. We go to our friends, we go to our colleagues. If I want to buy a new car, yeah, I'm gonna type in something online and read some reviews, but ultimately I'm going to consult my friends, my family. If I'm buying a house, it's the same thing. No matter what we need, we are always consulting friends and family.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
let's move on
Okay.
because there's a few more things I want to cover, and I know we're quickly approaching an hour here.
Cool.
Uh, okay, so I was reading through your bio on your website, and one of the things that you said is that you spend a good amount of time, and you put this in quotations, product testing.
Yeah.
So
That's to
what I
keep my
want to know
wife.
is the quotations, does that mean, does that imply that you spend a good amount of your time shooting for fun, or or does it literally mean product testing, or is it both?
It's kind of both.
Okay.
I mean, I think that is really to keep my wife happy up there, is because I can't tell her like I'm going fishing or skiing, whatever else all the time.
That's awesome.
Um, but it's also a very important part of it is being out there and being immersed in it. I mean, we shoot what we're passionate about. And I don't shoot climbing, because I'm not passionate about climbing and I don't know the subtle nuances of climbing like I do skiing, or so. Um, and shooting for fun, I guess, I find that the further along I get in my career as a commercial photographer, the harder it is just to get out there and shoot for fun. And I am
Hmm.
now really kind of understanding why it's so important to have personal projects.
Why is that?
To Just because if you don't, you're not shooting. That's
Hmm.
it. If you don't, then you're not out there pushing your creative side. If you're
Hmm.
not out there experimenting, what was that me? Let me get that out of the way. If you're not out there, then you're just not. If somebody else is driving that creative bus all the time,
Hmm.
then eventually your your creative well is going to dry up. And also, so that's one part of it. The other part is to consistently be producing work that's inspirational and aspirational to both, maybe other photographers, but more importantly, other clients. Is you want to continue to remain current and relevant, and it's hard to do that if you're just basing that off of jobs that you're shooting for. I mean, you want to let that creativity sing, and
Yeah.
it's you have very you got kind of very strict guidelines a lot of the time when you're shooting for clients. You have
Hmm.
you may not be producing the most inspiring imagery, so to speak. You might not be you might be producing imagery that's very legit for that client,
Hmm.
but were you to take that imagery out of context and try to approach new clients and say, check out this image, it might not be something that grabs their attention. So it's really
Right.
important to continue to fuel that creative drive.
So, a good portion of your portfolio, you would say, then is personal work too.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, a
That's
lot of
cool.
it is personal work. Be it's less so now, but I used to shoot a lot of spec stuff, a lot of stock stuff. Where if it's a beautiful night out here
Yeah.
in Salt Lake City, and the flowers are out and the foothills are green, then I grab some athletes and go shoot some trail running, or I grab some athletes and go do fly fishing, or maybe we do a cycling shoot, or maybe I go out and do some architectural work. And so I used to do that a bunch. I don't do that quite as much anymore. I think that
Right.
has partly to do with the fact that I've got a bigger workload here in the office. I also have
Busier.
3 kids. Yeah,
Yeah.
a family, and there's just a lot of other stuff going on, but I think it's really important to try and maintain that to some extent.
Well, I mean, I think that's really good advice, actually. I've never heard that one yet. To actually, it makes sense though. You should spend a good amount of time, especially in the slow times, getting out there and
Exactly.
setting up shoots to try to attract more business. And not just that, but to perfect, your creativity and what you do. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm
Cool.
actually really bad at that. I need to do more of that. So,
Yeah, I
but
do too.
I
I
like
do
the
too, man.
idea of contracting or like setting up shoots with like you just said getting together with some athletes and going out there and shooting them because that works with the brand that you created. For me it would be going and finding some models to do sort of a mock shoot of some kind. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's
But
interesting.
and a lot of the time, this is the thing too, is a lot of the time it costs money, and you got to know, and sometimes you got to spend your own money. I mean, if you look at a lot of the big name commercial photographers out there, they spend a lot of money on personal shoots.
Okay.
But spending 3 or 4 thousand bucks on a personal shoot that might get you a $50,000 job, it's all relative at that point. So
Yeah.
um, I think if you can do it for free, that's ideal. And a
Right.
lot of the talent out there, it's a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours sort of thing, and they
Oh
need
yeah.
work for their portfolios and they need stuff too. It just really is a matter of going out and doing, being committed to that.
Model mayhem.
Right.
Um, so okay, let's see. Where do I want to go next with this? There's one thing I did want to talk about, and that is I try to touch on this with every photographer I have on here because I think it's important that obviously I have you on the show because you're pretty incredible and successful.
Well,
But
thank you.
I want to make sure that everybody knows that you're human. You're not some cyborg from Mars that's
Yeah, yeah.
perfect in every way. Okay, so we need to make you more relatable. I mean, was there
That
ever a
won't take
time?
much.
What's that?
That won't take much.
So what? I mean, can you think of a time where you struggled, whether business was slow or personal life got in the way or something along those lines, and give me an example of that and how you overcame that, persevered.
Yeah, okay. So I think first of all, for anybody that has followed my work at all, they'll know that I'm very real. I'm very real about um my successes and my failures, I'm very real in the sense that I don't have any secrets because I'm very confident in myself as a photographer and a business person, and I'm also able to look at um, the photography arena and those in the industry and other photographers and garner insight and inspiration from them. I think our instinct a lot of the time is to look at other photographers in a super competitive manner. It's like, well, I could have shot that, or well, why did he do it this way, or I would have done it that way, and I think it's really important to be able to take joy in the success of your fellow photographers, especially in your local communities. I mean, you should know them. You should be friends with them. You should be able to call them up for advice. They should be able to call you up for advice, because we all have strengths and weaknesses in different areas. And I'm frequently consulting other photographers. So I think, like you said, it's important. I mean, we are human. I guess going back to, I can recall
Okay.
probably like, I would have been like 6 months into when I jumped off to do this full time. So about 4 years ago.
Okay.
For the first like 6 months, it was just like I was getting jobs and I was selling prints and I mean, I was just like making money and I wasn't stuffing money under the mattress by any means, but I was making a living.
Yeah.
And, and then it just dried up for like 3 or 4 months. And I was just so unbelievably frustrated no matter how many emails I sent or how many images I shot, how many blog posts I put out, how many Facebook posts, how many phone calls. I mean, I was working my tail off, and it just wasn't happening. And this is kind of like a personal insight. I don't ever really cry, but I was talking to my wife, and I broke down. Like I was in tears. I was like,
Yeah.
I really don't know what to do. This is I'm a rock bottom right now is what it feels like, and I think hopefully, I think a lot of people out there when they hear this, they can probably relate
Oh
because
yeah.
everybody
Absolutely.
has reached that point where it's like I don't know what to do. And I think, I can't say that there was one thing that made it that resolved the problem, but it really, well, I can say that it was one thing. It's just working hard each and every day, just continuing to get after it, and to know that if you're producing legitimate work, if you have that skill set and you couple that with drive and passion, you will be successful. There's no way. Now, if one of those components is missing, in my opinion,
Hmm.
um, there's like room for failure. But I just, pretty soon the phone started ringing, and it wasn't like somebody called me up with the job of a lifetime, but I started getting jobs. And this was, like I said, now this was 4 years ago. And I can honestly say that, I've never looked back. Yeah, I've continued to grow my business every year. Last year was my best year yet. I
Awesome.
hope this year is my next best is my best year at the end of this year. I hope I can say that as well.
Yeah.
Um, but it really is about believing in your vision. It's believing in your skill. It's believing that you can do it, and continuing along that path. Because I think that's what separates like the wheat from the chaff. Is that a lot of people get stuck in those situations and they throw in the towel. And I know for sure that I could never work this hard for anybody else. Like there's no question.
Yeah.
But knowing that I am the sole benefactor, I'm not. I am reaping all the benefits. I also reap all the detriments. That's the downside. But knowing that I'm the sole benefactor, it's great. You're not working for anybody but yourself, and there's nothing that can hold you back other than yourself, really.
Well, that's good advice. Thanks for sharing. I
Yeah.
really do appreciate that. I know that's going to go a long way with a lot of our listeners. It's so relatable. Uh, so the thing I want to talk about next is let's go from that. So that's your lowest low. What was your highest high? Like what was like the shoot that you had that you were just like, wow, this is what I do for a living.
Yeah.
Like describe that moment, what it felt like.
Man, I've had I don't know that I could pare it down to one.
Okay.
Um, because, like, to be quite honest, like, it happens like every day. It doesn't need to be on like some exotic location for an amazing client. Like, I mean, I seriously like wake up every day and I just think I am so extremely fortunate. You know, I work for myself, I work from home, I see my family, I travel to exotic parts of the world, I am engaged in an activity uh, that I'm so passionate about every day. So that would be the like punch and cookies answer, and it really is true. I mean, I feel so fortunate to do what I'm doing. But if I were to come up with some specific examples,
Right.
one of them would be for again, it's kind of tied to Manfrotto.
Okay.
Manfrotto has been a client that I've been both sponsored by and worked for a number of times. And a couple years ago, they called me to come over to Israel, where one of their
Wow.
sister companies, Kata Backpacks, is located. So Kata is based out of Jerusalem,
Mm-hmm.
and basically every year they have um, a professional photographer come and mentor the company on like a company retreat. You know, because obviously in that they are producing photo backpacks. They've got a lot of aspiring photographers and people that are interested in that. So we went and spent 2 days in the desert, in the Jordan desert. We were rappelling in the Jordan desert. We were staying in a Bedouin tent. They were cooking
Oh
up
wow.
like amazing meals over fires. Um, I was halfway around the world in a locale that was just steeped in culture and history, and the landscape was amazing, and I was just like, wow, I can't believe this. And then after that, I spent a couple of days in Jerusalem myself, and just to shoot. And so that was definitely an instance. I think another one would have been just the most recent shoot with Manfrotto. I mean,
Yeah.
really. And I think a lot of that had to do with what I was shooting. And I was shooting pure landscape. And that just doesn't happen very often. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
happen very often that I'm able to do what I would do um, without a client nearby. Well, let me rephrase that. I was basically just going out and shooting 5-star landscapes on this journey,
Yeah.
and that is what I love to do. I
Mm-hmm.
love shooting. That's where my photographic roots are, is in scenic landscape work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what has really helped in separating myself from a lot of other photographers. In my active lifestyle and outdoor work is my background in scenic landscape imagery, but I don't get to do it very often, and I especially don't get to do it for clients. So the fact that we were visiting iconic landscape locations, I mean, we were with great people. That's another thing, is I just find myself meeting such cool people and having like such a good time, and that plays a big part. It's very different than, yeah, these are beautiful spots and I'm shooting them by myself, but being able to share these experiences with others and network. And I mean, it's better with others. And so that Manfrotto shoot, I mean, go watch the videos. I think that if you go to manfrotto.com, you can get a really good feeling for all you guys out there, how this shoot went off. The behind the scenes shows how much fun we had. A lot of the produced videos by the Bowie brothers show how beautiful every place was, and so that was another place where I was like, well, this is it's a well-paying shoot. I'm with great people, visiting amazing locations, and I'm shooting scenic landscape work.
That was
And
such a fun shoot. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, it really was. It was epic,
it was
and
kind of a moment for me too, where I was like, "Wow, I'm basically road tripping around California with a bunch of awesome people that are just fun, goofy,
yeah,
and just a blast to hang out with." And then in between being on the road and just goofing off, like we were just shooting killer images
yeah. I
and
think
doing what we love. So it was so
Yeah, I
cool.
think you gotta be in. And the client, repeatedly said we were amazed at the dynamic, but what we were also amazed by was the professionalism of
Right?
everyone. So
Yeah.
I think that's important. Is that we were having such a good time, but the bottom line is, in the end, we were producing for the client, and so that's where you kind of have that moment where you step back and you're like, wow, this is all just going so well and we're getting it all done, but you can never lose sight of that. Like, it's the best when you're having a great time and you're producing that 5-star work.
Doing what you love and having fun while you do it.
That's
Right?
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So hey, let me give you a chance. We're gonna wrap up the interview right now, shortly because I think we're over an hour now. But let me give you a chance to talk about your upcoming workshop real quick.
Yeah, okay, so I got a couple upcoming workshops, but one of them is in Antarctica, Antarctica for February of
That's killer.
2014. So if you go to my website,
Yeah.
adambarkerphotography.com, we're going to the end of the earth. It'll be awesome. Going with a great tour operator. It's a 12-day journey. We're going to be spending 4 to 5 days in Antarctica itself. The rest is kind of the journey to and from, which is super fun as well. You get to go across the Drake Passage. Another one, I'm doing a Southwest workshop, the Desert Southwest, with a really fantastic large format film photographer named Milo Fowler.
Yeah.
He is a Navajo photographer. He's got access to a lot of killer places in the desert Southwest. This is in Utah and Arizona. That'll be late September, or maybe it's October. Yeah, October of this year. As well, I'm doing a fall workshop up in the Ogden Valley, which will be in late September. So we got a couple workshops coming up, and
Yeah.
these are, of course, for all you scenic landscape shooters out there. It'll be epic, and you can see details for all of those on my website at adambarkerphotography.com.
Great. And I just wanted to say, if there's anybody out there that wants to get in touch with you and just say thank you for sharing, how can they do that?
Best way is by email. I'm usually really good at email. My email is adam@adambarkerphotography.com. You can also see that on my website. Just shoot me an email, and yeah, if I'm always really pretty good about answering questions and any of that. Sometimes I get backed up a little bit, but I'm a big believer in giving back to the photo community. I've made it to where I am today thanks in large part to other photographers, and I always try and answer questions as time permits as well.
Great, thanks so much. I'm gonna go ahead and, for the listeners, if you go to shoot2earn.com, you can see a link to Adam's website from there, just in case weren't able to jot it down. But Adam, thanks so much for being on the
Yeah,
show. This has been a
thank you.
seriously killer interview. I'm really excited
Awesome,
about
man.
it.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you.